Raider Nation, good morning. It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, back in the Chat Sports Studios, which means you already know I'm going to be live later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. The Raiders news that I want to talk about today is I had multiple Raiders reporters respond to my criticism of the Pete Carroll presser yesterday because I know I wasn't the only one, and I know I'm not the only one that has been frustrated with the weeks-on questions that Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and a bunch of these coaches have had to answer for a very, very long time. I want to make this statement, though, very, very clear. If you subscribe to the Raiders Report, I know I'm a loud individual, but our voices are heard. And the more people we have here, the louder and louder our voice can get. I know that we've been able to prove it on this channel for a very, very long time. We got Josh McDaniels fired. We had the Raiders moving on from Chip Kelly. We break stories here on this program. But at the end of the day, I'm a Raider fan just like all of y'all. So I'm not afraid to put my opinion out there. I'm not afraid to tell everybody how I feel because, again, I put my pants on the exact same damn way, and I do this thing because I am a Raider fan first. I am not a Raiders reporter. I am not a Raiders beat writer. I am not a Raiders insider. Yes, of course I get scoops because if you don't think that agents and players and all these other guys want to talk to me, then yeah, you probably live underneath the rock. But the reason why you hit that subscribe button, our voices out will be heard. So make sure you're subscribed. All right, so I had 4 Raiders reporters reach out to me yesterday because, again, I told people, hey, and I actually want to be very clear on this. I respect the hell out of the 4 Raiders beat writers, the 4 Raiders beat reporters that reached out to me yesterday because that was the point of the video. I don't put out videos. I don't put out content. I don't say the stuff that I do because I'm afraid of somebody coming at me, right? I still am waiting for Geno Smith to write back. So to the 4 Raiders beat reporters, you have earned a whole new level of respect from me, and I hope that Raider Nation shows a whole new level of respect to the beat reporters that I'm going to talk about today. Though, I will only mention one by name because I don't know if I can mention the other 3 by name. But hey, if you guys see this video, you know who you are. If I can mention you by name, I'd love to be able to do it. Let's go to the first remark here. And it's from your boy Q on Twitter. And, you know, I've interacted with Q in the past. And if there's one thing that I came across from yesterday, I might not be the most well-liked guy from Raiders PR. I might not be the most well-liked guy in that Raiders Report room. But you know what? I know every single one of those guys respect me, and I know every single one of those guys know what we do here at the Raiders Report is not an easy thing, and I know that there is a mutual respect there. But here's what Q had to say to me. I know what I asked Pete. I'm very comfortable with what I asked, and I'm always have been. Will ask what I feel I need to ask. Nobody's questions are ever pre-screened. Not sure where that came from, but they are not. So my rebuttal to what Q had to say, and again, Q, shout out to you, man. I really do appreciate you getting back to me. But I do think like a little bit of that answer, and again, is a little bit Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly-ish because I get that you're comfortable with what you asked, but when there is a group of people that are a little bit frustrated with the questions that you're asked, I kind of wish, you know, there would be that little bit of self-reflection of, all right, maybe I'm not asking the correct questions. And to be real with you, Q, I don't know which questions you asked yesterday in that Pete Carroll presser, but to me there was not a single good question or a top needed question because there was nothing asked about Geno Smith. There was nothing asked about what Pete Carroll's job availability is going to look like in the future. And if you didn't see the questions that I wanted the Raiders reporters to ask yesterday, I put it in that video. It's going to be down in the comments. It's going to be down in the description of today's show. I put 9 questions that I think would have been much better questions than any other questions that would have been asked. And again, I'm not going to sit up here and tell a grown man how to do his job. But I do want the Raiders reporters that responded back to me and anybody that saw that video go, you know, like, can we ask some more difficult questions? And I don't know if that's going to come across as a jerk way, but to me, I think the amount of pointless questions that are being asked on a weekly basis are why fans are wondering if the questions are pre-screened. And I think it's a very, very fair thing for us fans to wonder just because of how bad the questions have been. And again, it's not a one-day thing. It's not a one-week thing. It's been weeks upon weeks upon weeks of really poorly asked questions that make me wonder, like, do our Raiders reporters actually have a good pulse of the fan base? Do they actually have a good pulse of the team, the players, the coaches, the front office, the entire organization from top to bottom? I'm not 100% sure, but I'll also say this. A lot of the responses that I got yesterday kind of made me, in a sense, happy because There's a reason why people watch this program. It's because we have a better pulse on all things going on Raiders than I think anybody that works inside of that organization. And I'll say it once and I'll say it twice. I'll say it 100 times. You don't need to be inside of that room to be able to cover the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Raiders Report has proved that for 7-8 straight years. It's the reason why we're the number one most watched Raiders show on the entire planet. Let's go to the next one here. And again, I'm not going to mention this beat reporter by name, but I'll just say it like this. Every single one of y'all watching this show know exactly who this person is. Every single person watching this show would know exactly that he's one of the biggest Raiders beat reporters, let's call him, on the planet. And that's how I'm going to leave it. So this is his quote. Not sure where any of this started, but that's not even an ounce of accuracy. To anyone who thinks or suggests that questions are pre-screened, no one here would put up with some nonsense like that. I know fans are out for blood, but everything's been asked multiple times that can be asked. It's a total mess. The key now is how do they clean it up and who will be in charge of the cleanup. All of those questions will be asked starting in January, but there's no place on planet Earth where I or anyone else covering the team would be okay having to screen questions. It's preposterous that anyone would even think that, let alone actually suggest it. It's frickin' football, not world or national security. So when you hear that statement from Q, when you hear that statement from that Raiders beat writer, again, that one that I just put out, I'm not going to mention him by name. You know who you are. If you don't mind me mentioning you by name, I actually think that you'd earn some flowers, and I think you'd earn some stripes from Raider Nation, quite frankly. So here's going to be my question to you, and it's going to be the pinned comment on today's show. What would you like to say to the beat reporters who think it's crazy that we think that questions are pre-screened? My answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. So first off, shout out again to Q, and shout out to the Raiders beat reporter and everyone who, everyone who responded back to me. But at the same exact time, okay, I feel like these responses are very Pete Carroll and a very Chip Kelly related because, we can sit up here and we can poke holes that Pete Carroll's not doing a good job, Chip Kelly wasn't doing a good job, that certain coaches aren't doing a good job, and they can sit up there at the podium and they can go, well, we're doing everything in our power, right? Being Pete Carroll's go-to right now is the communication has been really, really solid. Well, my communication with these beat reporters, again, I think it was solid and I appreciate it, but there's a reason why people are wondering, right? Like, we're not wondering if they're pre-screened because we're just wondering that. We're not just pulling that out of our you-know-what. The reason why those questions are being brought up and the reason why, there's the question marks around the pre-screening is because the amount of poor questions, the amount of softball type of questions, the amount of questions that, quite frankly, is a waste of your time as a professional, as a waste of a fan's time. It's just a waste of time. And I'll keep saying it. I say it all the time on the show. There's nothing more valuable than time. And when I feel like my time's wasted, when I feel like Raider Nation's time's wasted, yeah, I get fired up about it. So even if to the Raiders beat reporters who think it's crazy that the questions are pre-screened, all I ask you is this. Wonder why we are wondering that they are pre-screened. And if you still can go to bed, you can put your head on your pillow and you say, hey, man, I'm doing everything in my power. I'm doing my best job possible. Then that's fine. That's your prerogative. And again, I'm not going to tell a grown man how to do his job. But all I ask is that you look at the frustrations where we're coming from and at least sit back and go, all right, I can understand why maybe they didn't like that question. Or, you know what, maybe I can understand why they didn't like that one. Because I'm not saying all the questions that you guys ask on a week-to-week basis are bad, but let's be real, there are definitely questions that seem to be off limits. And if you're telling me that that's not the truth, come on, man. Shame on you. All right, we got more Raiders reporters who, this is where I think this show gets interesting because I did have two Raiders reporters who I talked to yesterday on the phone. And again, I appreciate the phone call. We spoke for about 30 minutes or so, and they feel like they are being held back. And which is, again, I think it's the Raiders are such a disaster right now of an organization because you got two Raiders reporters that are telling me that, there's no pre-screening, that there's nothing that they're being held back on. They can ask whatever the heck that they want. And I would, again, say, like, if you can ask whatever the hell you want and the questions that are being asked, I encourage you, Q, and I encourage the other person who DM me to ask better questions. I'm just going to keep it a buck, right? Just like you guys kept it a buck with me. But I got two Raiders reporters who told me that they felt like they are being held back. And I know that they're not the only ones. So I'm going to tell you what those guys had to say to me here in just a moment. But if you don't know, this episode brought to you by Prize Picks. And it's the holiday season, the best time of the year for bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, or who to root for so we get the number one overall pick. It's happening all at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, or for me, what the hell to drink to stay hydrated, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right, and that's on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. One of the things that I love is how straightforward Prize Picks is, and I don't got to spend a lot of time trying to calculate my payouts. Prize Picks makes it easy with their payout multipliers, where it's just a simple 3 times or a big 2,000 times. Prize Picks makes it easy to understand how I can win. Also, they got this new feature where they have early payouts. So if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. And again, man, I got to keep giving a shout out to my guy, the Weldinator. He sends me his Prize Picks lineups, and the message he sent me yesterday was like, dude, I freaking love this new feature because I can get those early payouts, and I can get out of there if my lineup gets off to a hot start. Now, again, the Weldinator is a big time baller. I don't got the bankroll that the Weldinator's got, but I think what my message here is always like, if the Raiders are really bad, if you put in a $5 lineup, like guys, I do $5 lineups all the time to win $25, right? But guess what? I love watching a game. Like I was watching the game last night, and I needed Drake May to put up some fantasy points to help me be able to win my fantasy league. I'll be honest, my dad beat me, but I actually think I still got a crazy shot in my family league to be able to get it in. But bottom line is this: if your fantasy team's over, if your actual football team season's over, go get started with Prize Picks. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And if anybody that watches this show, obviously I have my DMs, Instagram, all that type of stuff. If you got an awesome Prize Picks lineup and you want to get it featured on the show, I'd be more than happy to feature it on there because I love when you guys send me the stuff that you're doing because it gives me also something to root for. Weldinator, you know how much I appreciate you, man. All right, coming up next here, let's go to the 2 Raiders reporters that I spoke with yesterday on the phone, and they made it very clear to me they do not want to be mentioned, and I will not mention them by name. But first off, there are, and it's not just these 2 gentlemen, so I want to be very clear on that, but these 2 gentlemen made it very clear to me that the way that the Raiders reporters, the way that the Raiders media team works is the Raiders media team, the Raiders, staff, let's call it, they got their favorites. And if you're willing to kiss ass and if you're willing to talk only cupcakes, butterflies, and rainbows, you might get extra access, and these other people might get pushed out a little bit more. But there are some Raiders reporters that feel like that their hands are tied. And again, the pre-screening, I was told by every single Raiders reporter that I talked to yesterday, the pre-screening rumors, the pre-screening whatever is 100% false. The Raiders do not pre-screen anything. They do not pre-screen questions. They have never pre-screened questions, and they never will pre-screen questions. So I do want to get that out. Every Raiders reporter that I talked to yesterday made that very, very, very clear to me. However, though, Raiders PR does encourage positive questions. And I also was told that there are some Raiders reporters that are afraid to ask, quote, your type of questions, referring to me, because they could lose some of their access / they could lose some of their credentials. I was also told that there's a lot of new Raiders reporters out there that are just trying to earn their stripes. And again, like when you follow the Las Vegas Raiders, when you follow the Oakland Raiders, I think for people that literally follow the team inside and out and people that watch this program every single day, you'll know that there's been some turnover with those Raiders reporters, right? Like Vic Tafur doesn't cover the team anymore. Deshaun Reed doesn't cover the team anymore. So when they're looking for new guys to step into those roles, those new guys are trying to earn that love, earn that respect with that organization. That way they can continue to move up. The problem is, though, that Raiders PR, they are encouraging a lot of the beat reporters to have positive questions. And in a 2-10 season, I just ask Raiders PR to let these grown men do their job, right? Like, you're paying these people to do a job. And I don't think that a lot of these people would sit up there and, probably say and do a lot of the things that, I do on here. And it is what it is. But, I'm not afraid to do it. But at the same time, I don't know if I would have done it back when we were at 10,000 subs, 5,000 subs. I don't even remember what used to go through my mind. But at this point, I know I've been able to build a larger platform. And at this point, I'm going to be real with you. I'll say whatever I want. I'm not afraid to say what I want. And it's why I think people enjoy this program, because we're uncut, we're unraw. And I'll tell you this, there's a lot of Raiders reporters out there that are, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but wish that they could say and do a lot of the things that I say and do on here, because it's what the fans deserve to hear, right? So, yes, the questions are not pre-screened, but when you are encouraged by your bosses to ask layups and softballs and easy questions for your head coach and your quarterback, and again, it's been made very clear to me that there are certain people, when they take that podium, that the encouragement is supposed to be a little bit of a higher level of encouragement and not so many tough questions. But I was also told that, apparently certain Raiders reporters encourage other reporters, and Raiders PR also encourages its reporters to not interact with me on Twitter. Apparently people are allowed to interact with me on Instagram, but on Twitter, it's a place where they're not really supposed to interact with me, and it's because I am, quote, too negative. Let's just be real here. We're 2-10. This is the worst Raiders team that I've seen in a very, very long time. Raiders fans haven't seen a playoff win since 2002. It's been how many years since this team's been relevant? One winning season in the past, 2 winning seasons, right? I'm trying to think. It's 2016 and 2021 are the only 2 winning seasons. 1 playoff game, 0 playoff wins. If I'm being too negative around a 2-10 team, then I would encourage Raiders PR to sack up a little bit. And I have no ties with the Las Vegas Raiders. And I know that. They know that. And it's why I'm allowed to say whatever the heck I want to say. But if me being too negative about a 2-10 team rubs you the wrong way, let's look ourselves in the mirror here and be like, what's the real problem? It's not me being too negative. It's the fact that this is a 2-10 football team, and they look like the worst Raiders team that has ever stepped foot on a Raiders field of all time. And the Raiders have been around, I don't know if y'all know this, for a very long time. So I'll just keep it like this, though. Again, I think I've been able to prove on this show that you don't need to be in that room, and there's been many Raiders reporters that have said things to other Raiders reporters that they shouldn't interact with me. And there's been some people that have been a part of that organization for a long time that have probably, had to look at me, deal with me as competition. And if you're looking at me as competition, find a way to beat me. Don't try to find ways to, ruin my name, I guess, in a sense. And I know who the one person is in particular. And again, there's a lot of politicking in this game, and I don't do the politicking. I don't do the high school bullshit. Again, there's certain Raiders reporters that do the politicking. There's certain Raiders content creators that do the politicking. And if you're telling people to not interact with me because I'm not in the building, with all due respect, grow the fuck up. And there's a reason why we're the number 1 most watched Raiders show on the planet. And I've been able to break stories way before a lot of people that are in that room. We have broken multiple stories this year, last year. And I think there's a reason why people appreciate the content that we put out. It's because you're not going to put a muzzle over my mouth. You're not going to tie my hands behind my back. And if you do try to put a muzzle over my mouth, and if you do try to tie my hands behind my back, I'm going to Raider the F out. And I'm going to just sit up here and I'm going to find a way, because that's what commitment to excellence is. That's what actually trying to show up to do your job to 100% ability every single day is. And that's what we do here on the Raiders Report. And I think it's why people, again, like this show. And I want people to really understand that our voices will be heard. Our voices are being heard. And I was told that Raiders reporters hear our frustrations and that they will try to ask better questions moving forward. I think the goal of my video yesterday was to light a little bit of a fire, not only, underneath, Pete, Gino, this entire organization, but to light a fire also underneath a lot of those Raiders beat writers and beat reporters, because, again, it's a privilege. It is a privilege to be able to ask Pete Carroll questions. It's a privilege to be able to get in that locker room and ask those players questions. It's a privilege to be able to ask, Chip Kelly, even though he's not here anymore. It's a privilege to be able to ask Geno Smith questions. And even though I don't have the ability to be in that room, I will still sit up here and I am jealous of the fact that I do not get the same privileges that a lot of y'all get. But you know what I do have? I got a voice and I got a channel here, and we're going to be loud and we're going to do it. So to the Raiders beat reporters that reached out to me yesterday, again, you got a whole new level of respect for me, and I hope that you guys know that. I'm not going to doubt y'all that you probably weren't loving a lot of the things that I said, because I wouldn't love if somebody attacked me either in those ways. And it's just, again, I think there's a mutual respect here. I hope that we can still keep moving it forward, because at the end of the day, the reason why I do this job is to give Raider fans, the best coverage that they can get. And I know that I'm not always the guy. I'll say it all the time. I don't do a lot of the X's and O's. You want X's and O's? Go follow my guy Sanjeet. He's one of the best in the biz, right? Like, there are other people that do certain things, and there are a lot of great Raiders content creators out there. There's a lot of really solid Raiders beat reporters and beat writers out there. But at the exact same time, I appreciate that you guys reached out to me. Some of y'all told me that you will try to ask better questions moving forward, that you hear and you understand our frustrations. And all I can ask is, that was the point of my video, for you to hear and understand our frustrations, and hopefully we see some better questions moving forward. Because I'll guarantee you this, if we don't see better questions on Wednesday, and if we don't see better questions after probably when the Raiders lose every other game for the rest of the season on those Mondays, I'm going to keep making these videos. And I'm going to keep calling people out, because I want change. Raider Nation deserves change. And the only way that we're going to get change is if we speak up and speak our minds. And that's how I'm going to leave this video. All right, y'all, I'm hopping out of here. I will see you guys later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, live here on The Raiders Report. If you guys are looking for even more content around the silver and black, make sure you click the subscribe button right here. I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that our voices are heard every single day, because that's my job here as the host of the Raiders Report. If you guys are looking for even more content, there's 2 videos over here that YouTube encourages you to watch. Essentially, if you enjoyed this video, you're going to like those videos. But the number 1 video that I want you to watch, if you watch today, was my criticism of the Raiders beat reporters yesterday, because that's the only reason why I made this show today.